We were talking before we went live about this road trip that you're going to do, sort of working with, is it with crypto only down through South America?
No, we're going to try to use Bitcoin, gold, silver. And then if we
Bitcoin,
have
gold,
to,
silver. Okay.
cash. But the whole thing is called a CBDC Road Trip to Freedom Challenge.
Yeah, let's start
And
with that. Let's talk about that.
yeah, the reason I'm doing it is because I believe that the question of CBDCs is a matter of when, not if.
Yeah.
In fact, just yesterday I saw an article on Reuters talking about how SWIFT, the payment mechanism, is coming out with a platform for central bank digital currencies within the next 12 to 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something, you know, what's funny, Rich, is when I first started talking about this back in 2019, when I started my channel, everybody was calling me a tinfoil hatter. They're calling me doom and gloom. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Okay, Alex Jones, whatever. A central bank digital currency.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now all of a sudden, based on that Reuters article, 90% of central banks are in the process of building a CBDC.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a problem on a lot of different levels.
Is this a bank issued problem, or is this a federal government issued problem that we're sort of?
Well, as far as from a standpoint of the citizen, the real problem is it's centralizing the ledger, and therefore they're going to have the ability to see in real time and therefore control your transactions. And then that leads to what I would call a social score.
Yeah.
And this is where, you know, it goes into complete Big Brother and 1984 Orwell.
Yeah. So programmable money is very easy to, I guess, create, program, distribute on a blockchain ledger. You don't have to mail it. There's no checks. There's no deposit in a bank account. It can just be added to somebody's digital wallet, and they can be forced to spend the money within a certain time frame. They can be restricted on what they can spend the money on. Their ability to access it could be restricted, dependent. I mean, you know, if we ended up in a dystopian sort of space where it's like carbon credits are a thing, and you've driven your diesel dually truck too far in the last few
or your
weeks.
McLaren.
Yeah, or your McLaren, your Porsche, whatever happen to be, you know, driving. You know, we're going to restrict your access to, I don't know, maybe meat protein, and here's a bag of crickets when you check out at the grocery counter. So it goes well beyond just, you know, the basic Orwellian stuff. Like, there's a deep rabbit hole here, isn't it? It's a pretty slippery slope.
Yeah, and they can also control the extension of credit. Functionally, the way you just described it is accurate. Mechanically, it's a little bit different because the one ledger, the consolidation of the ledger, would, in my view, be the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, because it's infinite. And then when we get into credit, or the extension of credit, they can give anyone any interest rate they want, and they can give anyone a loan, and they don't have to worry about being paid back because they can't go bust. So right now, I don't know who you bank with, but let's say your viewers bank with Wells Fargo in the United States, or Bank of America. Well, your dollars that you would consider your asset, whether it's in a checking account or a savings account, is a liability of that bank. So what would happen in a CBDC world, those dollar liabilities would go from the bank's balance sheet over to the Federal Reserve. And then, since they cannot go bust, they can go ahead and give XYZ disadvantaged group home loans at 0% interest rates, or negative interest rates. And if you're a straight white male like Rich Cooper, and if you've been successful in life because of your, you know, white male privilege, then you're not going to get a loan. And if you do get a loan, it's going to be at a 20 or 25% interest rate, because that's the only way that we can equal the playing field between you and this disadvantaged group that hasn't had the same, we'll call them, opportunities that you have. And so this is where it gets really crazy as far as individual monetary policy. And then, to your earlier point, if you're doing something they don't like, they can go ahead and put a cap on that. Or if you're not spending money fast enough, they can go ahead and have like a negative interest rate to where you have to spend that money, or you start to lose the the nominal purchasing power, or you just, at the end of the month, it just gets cut in half. So you got to spend it now or lose it. And this is the type of world that I think we're going into. You got to ask yourself, why wouldn't they do this?
Yeah, it makes
right?
sense.
Like you have to assume that the more we centralize government, the more power the central planners have, the more it's going to attract people who have an insatiable lust for power. In other words, the more it's going to attract sociopaths. Now, even if you like the guy or gal in charge right now, that's not the point. At some time in the future, as long as we continue to consolidate power, then you're going to get a megalomaniac, a Stalin type, or a Mao, or other people that I can't mention to keep it YouTube friendly. You're going to get one of those people in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And then what they're going to do is they're going to leverage the system that has been created for them in order to control your life. And this is just the reality of the situation. That's why the only solution for this is smaller government. It's not just changing the views of the politicians and the government we have right now. So unfortunately, I've got some good news and bad news. The bad news is, for most people, this is unavoidable. You're going to have to operate within this system, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to have a bank account, or at least a bank account that's going to be compatible with you getting a paycheck, or you paying rent, or you paying your kids tuition, or buying health insurance, something like that. The good news is, I think we're going to be able to initially have a hybrid system where things like Bitcoin, gold, silver allow you to check out of the system and buy some of those things that could negatively impact your social score. And that's what this CBDC Road Trip to Freedom Challenge is all about. I'm going from Santiago, Chile, driving to Buenos Aires to meet my good friend Doug Casey for this trip, for this challenge. I'm sorry?
What's the distance? How many miles?
I don't know. It's going to take us about a week. That's all I know.
Okay, you're talking a few thousand then.
Oh yeah. It's like if we were to drive straight through, it's like 20 hours.
So like food, gas, accommodation, you're paying for with gold, silver, or Bitcoin only.
We're going to try, and I think what's going to happen is we're going to get
if they don't take it.
Yeah, then we go down to the local goldsmith, or the local gold dealer or pawn shop, and we say, look, we've got a tenth of an ounce of gold here. How much will you give us? And then we take the cash, the hard currency, and then we go to the gas station and fill up. Now, if we can, we're going to first and foremost use the gold, silver, or Bitcoin. But I'm trying to be optimistic, but I want to be a realist at the same time. And I have my doubts that we're going to be going through these certain cities in Argentina, and we're going to be able to find a hotel that takes Bitcoin, gold, or silver. So that's kind of the game plan. And the reason I'm doing this, Rich, is to show people what it would take to operate and transact outside of the system, so people can start to prepare for that now. They can understand the realities of the situation. They can sit back and say, okay, what do I buy monthly? I buy X amount of gas, I buy X amount of beef, I buy X amount of whiskey, whatever it is, X amount of bullets, X amount of guns. And I know that this is most likely going to negatively impact my social score, which in the real world, people say, oh, well, they can pound sand. Okay, but that social score, I think moving forward, is going to replace a credit score. So if you want to get a house, if you want to provide for your family, if you need credit for your business, then you're going to have to play by these rules, right? Or you can go live like the Amish, and that's fine. And I think that would be respectable. But you have to understand that that's going to be lowering your standard of living substantially. So you have this hybrid model where I think people are going to earn money within the system. They hopefully take their savings at the end of the month, and then they transfer that into something that is outside of the system. And then they transact as much as possible outside of the system, keep a lot of their savings outside of the system. And that's how we buy time in order for this alternative ecosystem to really grow and get to a point where we can start increasing the percentage of our expenses that are paid for in whatever we want, something that's outside of just government fiat.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here, and pin down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.